Welcome to Brainstorm MTG. I'm ELD, and this is Fast Effect, Double Speed Magic the Gathering. This is part of our ELD Legacy Open Championship, April 13th. And we had 33 players battling for the championship spot. The winner gets that leather playmat on the left-hand side, along with a healthy share of the 100% payout. And we have Kiefer on a blue Chalice deck. We see there Teleria West, a card that can transmute to go find that Chalice of the Void. And Andrew on Aggro Loam, so a couple of different Chalice decks. Trying to get some fun decks on camera here. And Chalice at 0 being played by Andrew. And is that like a misformed Shinobi? I don't know what that card is. Let me know in the comments what that card is. I have to try and look that up. It's going to be relevant. Kiefer always makes it challenging. Punishing Fire from Andrew, which gets Force of Will pitching Jace. Jace, the Mind Sculptor, and Force of Will, more important than this creature that I cannot name. Crucible of Worlds added to the board, along with a couple of Wastelands on the other side. So very interesting here. Grove of the Burnwillow is going to go ahead and return that Punishing Fire and clear the way. Wasteland, Wasteland. Non-basic's going to be a bit of a challenge this game. Mox Diamond into his own Chalice of the Void, forgetting about that for a second. And Dark Confidant being added to the mix. Chalice at 0, actually a really unfortunate situation now. Difficult to know that Chalice Crucible lock would be part of the mix. But that Mox Diamond would be a nice little shelter from the storm. Dark Confidant going to be outdrawing 2-1, but Crucible going to be able to maintain parity with it, recurring a land each turn from the graveyard. That True Name Nemesis is going to set a legitimate clock, so this is still potentially anybody's game. There's going to need to be some type of answers. Chalice at 1 now for Andrew. I don't believe we're going to see a lot of 1-drops in Kiefer's deck. City of Traders powering out a Jace the Mind Sculptor. That bounces the Dark Confidant. Now things swinging very much back in Kiefer's direction. He's got a Planeswalker, a card advantage engine in its own right, along with Crucible, which is keeping Andrew off of mana. And yeah, that is quite enough for Andrew. Going to try and find time for game 2 and 3 because that is just a bit too much. Taking a look through his sideboard options. Chalice of the Void. A card that usually has to get sideboarded out in these type of matchups. Not really where you want to be trying to cast it to shut off your opponent's spells. If they themselves are running the card, they are not loaded up in the one spot. So there we see Chalices coming out. I'm going to see what the Shinobi MTG, Mistblade Shinobi. Don't know if that's the same card. That's what it looked like to me, but let me know in the comments. I don't think that's actually it. Mistblade Shinobi, in case you're wondering, is whenever it deals damage to a player, you make him return target creature to its owner's hand. I think that was a 2-mana card. It definitely dies the Punishing Fire, so we've got some hints here. And it's worth forcing pitching Jace with. Aggro Loam with Punishing Fire can be quite literally punishing versus the smaller creature-based decks, decks like Death and Taxes, can really struggle versus a recurring Punishing Fire. If they can build a mana base, they can really punish you. The ability to recur it potentially multiple times per turn really makes it difficult to build a presence of creatures that have power 2 or less. Of course, if you can attack their mana base effectively enough and put enough of a clock on them, it is possible that that card really can't do much work. We'll see what the rest of Kiefer's deck entails. He has brewed up some pretty crazy things over the years. Andrew's list looks a little more stock. Probably not going to expect as many surprises from Andrew here. Kiefer's entire deck, kind of a surprise. Looks like a mono blue Chalice deck. Now there have been some black-blue Dimir style decks running Tezzeret, along with cards like Dimir Signet as kind of accelerants off of those soul lands. Of course, they are Chalice based, so your number one game plan is going to be jam a Chalice on turn 1 off of Ancient Tomb or City of Traders as need be. Andrew starting out with Acceleration with Green Sun Zenith for Dryad Arbor. And what is his turn 2 play? Scavenging Ooze. All right. Not taking full advantage of all of his mana here, but adding to the board. And actually did not attack with the Dryad Arbor, oddly. Trophy Hunter for Kiefer. Going to be able to get a 3 casting cost artifact, and that is Sword of Fire and Ice. Another soul land could turn this pretty violent pretty fast, enabling that Trophy Hunter to actually pick up the sword. Punishing Fire in hand. If he can have the red mana to go along with it, would be good on crowd control. And no red mana yet. Looks like a Karakas and a Bayou. And here's the Sword of Fire and Ice. Exiling that land. And there's red. Going to try and get the extra tempo out of this during the equip. Look to Punishing Fire. And there's a Chalice at 2. And that will force the Punishing Fire. Andrew playing very conservatively here. Could have jammed the Punishing Fire on his turn and gut in Matt's face with the Scavenging Ooze and Dryad Arbor. Getting those attacks in. And now the beatings commence. Fetching a Bayou, and let's see what he has to go along with this. Will it be a Liliana? No, just Life from the Loam, which is countered. Thought Not Seer. Going to show just a couple of lands. So Chalice at 2 could be pretty punishing. Usually a card that gets sideboarded out. Kiefer's mana curve so unusual that he can actually keep it in, cut off the 2 mana spells. He's mostly 3 or more mana. That Thought Not Seer, even though it whiffed a very real body, it's going to be doing 8 a turn if unblocked. So Dryad Arbor going to be sacrificed there. thrown in front of the Thought-Knot Seer, and Scavenging Ooze getting a little bit bigger. Quite a ways to go to get big enough to actually block and kill this Thought-Knot Seer. Pretty difficult to want to dredge a life from the loam to get extra bodies for Scavenging Ooze, and mercifully that is not necessary. It looks like Liliana comes in and makes that Thought-Knot Seer the only legal choice to sacrifice. And here's a Jace the Mind Sculptor returning to hand the Scavenging Ooze. Of course, with that Chalice at 2, that card is now dead. And it's Jace versus Lily. And this Aggro Loam list may really struggle against this Chalice at 2. It could have been recurring Life from the Loam and Punishing Fire, and instead it is going to be really stuck trying to make its 3 drops work. Let's see what else here. Oh, a pair of Knight of the Reliquary. Now that is spicy. Very well. Exactly the type of play that it wants to see. These guys are 4/4s right now. Jace the Mind Sculptor. Brainstorming. And now we've got Transmute. Does he have a sweeper for these guys? Perhaps Force Field to keep himself alive? Have a slow bleed out? No, Walking Ballista. And a Ballista at 1. Oh no, but that's countered. Oh, this Chalice at 2, just not something people are used to playing against. Both players making errors with it. And I think these Knight of the Reliquaries are going to make short work of this game. Jace and Kiefer both attacked. Jace goes away. And Knight of the Reliquary just gigantic here. Using some maze tricks here. Tapping and untapping, and that is going to do it there. So yeah, in that game, the Chalice at 2, really a bit of an issue. Was left in by Kiefer. Oh, did we see an Ajani Vengeant there? I guess Andrew does have some spice in that list after all. And let's see what happens game 3. This is the final round of Swiss. Grabbed the spiciest list that I could see in the room, left standing. We did have some people drawing into the top 8. I'd rather have a match that is played in earnest here. These guys really going for it. Trying to finish with as respectable a record as they can in a room that was quite challenging. Really solid room. We had 33 players, a lot of former champions from other events. Adam Brennan won the Leaving a Legacy Open the weekend before. He had a spot in the top 8 here as well. And here we go. Green Sun Zenith. Standard operating procedure here. You're going to try and get some acceleration going. And their curve essentially starting at 3 mana for the most part. Though as we saw last game, there's a bunch of 2 mana spells which are key to the deck, both Punishing Fire and Life from the Loam. But in terms of their threats, you're talking about cards like Liliana, cards like Knight of the Reliquary, and Trophy Mage on the other side. Threatening to make this a quick game. Looks like he's going to be able to commit a Liliana or Punishing Fire, whatever he wants. I would go with the Lily. Let's see what his choice is. Andrew grabbing a Badlands, so both are still options. And there she is. Is there a force in Lily's future, or will she start taking over the game? She does resolve Edict effect, clearing out the Trophy Mage, making that equipment significantly worse without a body to attach it to. It looks like Kiefer may have had just like the perfect curve here. Wasteland being pitched and Walking Ballista actually taking out both Dryad Arbor and Liliana, interestingly enough. Knight of the Reliquary now. Ballista could have held back, not killing the Dryad Arbor. Looks like Kiefer was really hoping to get some mana denial going. But this Knight of the Reliquary may just be a trump to that strategy, just that one extra turn. Knight of the Reliquary was able to sneak in before this Wasteland recursion started thanks to Crucible. And now all of this destruction of non-basics is just going to grow the Knight of the Reliquary. So Kiefer really going to need an answer to this card. 2 mana Sylvan Library. A very real threat. And Scrubland is a Plains. And we've got some crop rotating of sorts going on with Knight of the Reliquary. And Abrupt Decay hitting the Crucible. That's a pretty big swing right there. So Kiefer expecting to be able to use his mana base out of his graveyard thanks to Crucible, and that resource cut off from him. Has to play a Teleria West tapped. And Knight of the Reliquary took a turn off, creating a little bit of mana acceleration, sacrificing tapped lands, and also growing himself thanks to the number of lands in graveyards. And now Garruk Relentless coming in, adding a wolf token to the mix. And Knight of the Reliquary not ready to start attacking, goes and gets a Wasteland, keeping Kiefer's mana base down. And that is going to do it. So Andrew taking it down with Aggro Loam really was able to cripple Kiefer's mana base there in game number 3 and just sneak out just in time that Knight of the Reliquary to make sure that Crucible was not able to completely walk him out of the game. So, all right. Look forward to the top 8 matches next.